Whatsoever therefore is consequent to a time of war, where every man is enemy to every man, the same consequent to the time wherein men live without other security than what their own strength and their own invention shall flourish them withal. In such condition there is no place for industry, because the fruit thereof is uncertain, and consequently no culture of the earth, no navigation, nor use of its commodities that may be imported by sea, no commodious building, no instruments of moving and removing such things as require much force, no knowledge of all the face of the earth, no account of time, no arts, no letters, no society, and which is worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death. And the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. It's said that Mechwarriors of light mechs live short but glorious lives. There's probably some measure of truth in that statement in a world of streak SRMs, pulse lasers, and targeting computers. However, as long as there are armies seeking to outmaneuver their enemies or gather intelligence on weaknesses in their opponent's lines, the light scout mech will be a necessity. As great as hover vehicles are at traveling quickly, and battlefield commanders are blessed by the rare, reliable satellite feed, as often as not, light mechs with their bold and brave pilots are going to remain necessary. Swift of foot and able to leap so far that one could be forgiven for thinking there was true flight involved, the Ion Sparrow represents the pinnacle of scout mech design. It carries new technologies that push the limits of mech construction, and it's all contained in an adorable 20-ton package. As with other Dark Age and IlClan era clan Jade Falcon battle mechs, the name Ion Sparrow holds significance not just in creating a memorable nomiker for the mech, but also in describing how that mech could be used in combat. When the Jade Falcons claimed Alina in 3050, the planet's warm and wet climate was identified as a perfect habitat for the long-revered Fire Falcon, a predatory bird from the clan homeworlds. After the bird's release, ornithologist members of the science case noted a symbolic relationship developing between the newcomer Fire Falcon and a domestic bird called the Ion Sparrow. The small native species was identified as unique thanks to its use of an evolved ability to release an electrical charge to defend itself from swarms of local swamp insects. The food chain was disrupted by the arrival of the Fire Falcon, but in a way that benefited the Ion Sparrow. The Fire Falcon was observed driving swarms of the Brutovibore insects into flocks of Ion Sparrows. The sparrows would predictably discharge their electrical current, and the insects would fall to the ground, stunned and easy prey. It worked so well that both the Fire Falcon and the Sparrow benefited from the feast. The Ion Sparrow was initially intended to be an Omnimech testbed for new technologies, specifically continued refinement of the clan Jade Falcon developed partial wing. The Jade Falcon XL160 fusion engine pushed the mech's top speed to 129 km per hour, which allowed the Ion Sparrow to move at nearly unmatched speeds. The clan standard Type A2 jump jets combined with that partial wing allowed the Ion Sparrow to leap on plumes of plasma up to 300 meters. A civilian or unblooded warrior could easily confuse such a sight with powered flight. Unfortunately, opportunity cost remains a cruel mistress, and the Ion Sparrow would pay for that 8-12-10 movement profile in both armor and pod space. The 3 tons of compound JF ferrofibrous armor provides just 57 points of protection. This puts the Ion Sparrow in roughly the same boat as the Wasp in terms of defensive plating, but a full ton more than the Firemoth's 2 tons of armor. As with all the other 20-ton mechs, the key to survival is finding cover and never slowing down enough to start taking fire. The last structural note is the mech's small cockpit, which buys a little space in the mech at the cost of valuable foot and headroom. Now, finally, we're left with the pod space, which is admittedly a meager 4 tons. The Firemoth's 6.5 tons and the Fire Falcon's 10 tons really highlight the cost of that 2.5-ton partial wing. Alas, the butcher's bill always comes due. The primary configuration spent those 4 tons of mass on a pair of anti-personnel Gauss rifles, 1 ton of ammunition for said rifles, and 2 improved heavy-medium lasers. Each pair of weapons was split between the left and right arms of the battle mech. The AP Gauss fired metal flechettes at supersonic speeds and tore up infantry, battle armor, and even armored vehicles. Mechwarriors could target a light vehicle with the AP Gauss and then follow up with heavy-medium lasers to ruin the passenger's entire day. At least, that was the plan. Just keep in mind the mech is very clearly intended as a scout and shouldn't be deliberately getting into the middle of a stand-up fight. Initially, the limited options for weapons loadouts led many within the clan to write off the Ion Sparrow as nothing more than a glorified testbed, more suited for training mech warriors than for use in war. It wasn't until it was seen outperforming in those roles that it was greenlit for wider production. During its debut during Operation Noyan, Clan Hell's horses would end up being the recipient of the Ion Sparrow's unexpected fury. The horses, 71st Mechanized Cavalry, quickly deployed following a contested landing of their dropships. Seeking to take advantage of their vehicle speed, the Hell's horses leapt upon the opportunity to give chase to light forward elements from the Jade Falcon forces opposing them. The binary of Fire Falcons and Black Lanterns resisted the temptation to launch themselves at the invaders and instead fell back in what appeared to be a rout. The horses pursued and ended up rolling into an ambush where the binary turned and was joined by a star of Ion Sparrows which swept across the horses, firing as they ran. Unable to get a bead on the fast-moving light mechs, the horses discovered the easy victory was now a rapidly approaching defeat. When the commander of the horse unit issued a direct challenge to the lead Ion Sparrow, its Mechwarrior, Star Commander Chris Hazen, answered the challenge. Though outweighed and outgunned, Hazen was able to keep several steps ahead of his foe and wear down the 35-ton Parash 3. During the assault on Coventry in 3148, the Lyran troops that survived their encounters with the Ion Sparrow nicknamed it the Butcher Bird for its ability to spread carnage up and down infantry positions. The Alt-A configuration of the Ion Sparrow employs 2 arrays of 4 standard machine guns along with a half-ton of ammunition. The presence of an active probe in the left torso aids the A configuration to be much more obviously a scout mech. Still, those twin machine gun arrays can be incredibly deadly when aimed at anything squishy or wrapped in light armor. If you prefer a more missile-based build, the Configuration B may be for you. 2 SRM-6s split between the arms are fed by a single ton of ammunition in the right torso. This is a potentially powerful build with up to 24 damage in an alpha strike. However, the 15 shots split between 2 launchers can go very quickly. Then again, surviving 8 rounds of SRM ranged combat to run out of ammunition would be quite an accomplishment. For those fans of laser boats, the Alt Configuration C features 6 ER small lasers split between the arms aided by a targeting computer in the left torso. The Ion Sparrow's 10 double heat sinks and the 3 additional cooling from the partial wing are more than capable of handling the heat generated from the lasers and leaping up to the full 10 hexes, so you can fire to your heart's content. Finally, the Alt Configuration D features a medium pulse laser in the right arm and 2 ER medium lasers in the left. This is a possible 21 damage every turn, and the Ion Sparrow can fire the lasers consistently without overheating. If you want the variant that can be a quality damage producer if cornered and not have to worry about ammo, this is the solid choice. As great as these configurations are, the Ion Sparrow still comes with a warning that light mechs generally need to respect. That warning is to never let yourself get chased down by a hunter-killer medium. When a star of Jade Falcon Ion Sparrows ran into the forward elements of the 93rd Wolf Striker cluster on Zebebel Janubi, the Sparrows were quick to fall back under fire from the 2 50-ton Stormwolves which stomped into view. Unfortunately, the Falcons discovered that the new Wolf battlemech could chase them down thanks to a combination of supercharger and mask installation. Unable to flee and with no backup in range, the Ion Sparrows were forced to try to fight their way free. As bravely as they fought, the rotary AC-5 and laser fire gradually obliterated the star of Ion Sparrows. When word of their loss reached the ears of Malvina Hazen, she personally decreed that the Ion Sparrow was to avoid frontline combat. Before we get to a little story, I do have an MF configuration to share if you will indulge me. The Ion Sparrow MF doesn't do any fiddling with the hardware, so don't worry OmniMech purists out there. The partial wing is of course kept because taking it off would be like slapping Alexander Kerensky in the face. The 4 tons of pod space are spent as follows. 2 small pulse lasers, picked for their accurate fire out to 6 hexes, are split between the left and right arm. Joining them for dealing with up-close negotiations are 2 micro pulse lasers, also split between the 2 arms. All 4 are aided by a targeting computer in the right torso. For those keeping score in their heads, that's a -3 on those 2 hit rolls for pulse lasers and the targeting computer. Not too shabby. That's it. I think the MF configuration provides a slightly different take on the laser boat option touched upon with the C configuration. If you give it a shot on the tabletop, let me know how it performs. Overall, the Ion Sparrow is a very fun pick if you're playing a Jade Falcon Force and need a light scout. The ability to jump 10 hexes is incredible and will make for some really unpredictable battlefield situations. It has a neat story, and I hope the production lines continue on Alina, even though it's held now by the Mercantile League and not a remnant Jade Falcon Force. If you're not running a Jade Falcon army but still want an Ion Sparrow, you can always justify it by saying you bought one from the League. And now, a little story, totally non-canon, but fitting in with the IlClan fight on Terra. Terra, 3151, T plus 52, South America, outskirts of Redoubt, Sao Paulo. The light raindrops hit the ferroglass silently. From the confines of Mechwarrior Tycho's Ion Sparrow, the sporadic pitter-patter of the droplets couldn't possibly be heard. Still, she found herself imagining their incessant drumbeat anyway as her mech interrupted their fall from the cloudy sky. Tycho was assigned to Delta Galaxy just 6 months before arriving on Terra. She was young but ravenous in her desire to prove herself. Her Sibco days were rough, and she was considered the runt and often picked on by her taller and faster Sibkin. Still, she found a path to achieve her goals. While her peers squabbled and competed for prime placement in larger and more powerful machines, Tycho was drawn in by the alluring new mech called the Ion Sparrow. What it lacked in firepower and armor, it made up with speed and maneuverability. The Mechwarriors who piloted this mech were the tip of the spear that would assert Clan Jade Falcon's rightful place as the IlClan. Tycho knew this was where she wanted to be. The rain kept falling, as it had done for most of the 2 hours that Tycho sat silently waiting, hoping for something would show up on her active probe. She looked down at her hands, wrapped around the control sticks, and frowned at the 2 fingers taped to a splint. The persistent ache reminded Tycho of the harsh lesson she learned as her eagerness to prove herself overlapped with the ego of a star captain. The fight in the circle of equals on the dropship en route to Terra was short, and she once again felt the sting of laughter after the bout ended in less than a minute. The mistake had also cost Tycho her frontline status as a scout. Instead, she had spent the first days of the invasion in rear guard duty, where the most exciting contact was the occasional jungle creature glowing in infrared on her view screen. While she was still technically part of this grand conquest, it was unlikely that she would gain any honor or prestige from babysitting in the jungle. The Mechwarrior's melancholy was interrupted when a yellow blip on the screen instantly grabbed Tycho's attention. She sat up a little straighter and quickly brought the systems of the mech she had named Suluk to 100%. The nickname was a word from her distant Inuit ancestors that meant a feather from a wing. One blip turned into a half dozen on the very edge of her probe's range. This was going to be a thing. She quickly fired off a signal to command and pushed forward on the control pads, moving Suluk out of the thick jungle undergrowth where she had been hiding. The bird-like mech stomped over the greenery easily, and she set off to get more information about what had become more than a dozen large enemy signatures. Command, this is Mechwarrior Tycho. We have at least a dozen mech signatures in Quadrant B3. I am approaching for confirmation. Info transmission as it rolls in. She spoke over a secure channel. Within moments, the response was not enthusiastic. A largely disinterested-sounding voice returned. Aft, Mechwarrior. Obtain more information and then fall back. Find out if they are Republic forces or those Stravek wolves. Do not fire on the wolves unless they fire first. Tycho frowned at the possibility of the wolves sticking their noses into this battle. They would be dealt with soon enough once the Republic was defeated. Putting Suluk into a run, breaking through bushes, light trees, and dodging fallen logs, she replied into the feed. Af, visual in 10 seconds. The jungle was dense and the light was low due to the forest canopy overhead. But as Tycho raced towards the blips, which were now more than 24 strong, she flipped between infrared and natural light in order to catch a view of the machines and any insignia on them. The dense jungle canopy limited natural light, and the hanging vines and greenery prevented a good visual. At long range, several of the machines started to fire on Tycho. Thankfully, speed kept Suluk safe as she bounded ever closer. At only a few hundred meters, she could see the mechs stomping toward her and the rest of the Jade Falcon forces behind and already locked into an assault on Sao Paulo. Command, this is Mechwarrior Tycho. These are Republic mechs. Make and model and insignia confirmation, definitely not Clan Wolf. She spoke quickly as she knew all it would take is one lucky shot to end her scouting mission. The response was concerning as the reply was from a different person than before and in a much more authoritative tone. They said, Impossible. Republic forces are tied up in the redoubt.
Those must be wolves.
Neg, Tycho said, frustrated by being told something she is seeing is not so. At 120 meters, she banked her mech hard, hoping to put some distance between her and the Republic mechs. A few lucky glancing shots were starting to pile up. Deeper into the jungle, Tycho pushed her mech hard and triggered her jump jets. The bright plasma fire lifted the mech up out of the jungle and into the gray, cloudy sky. She watched her altitude and hit the jets again only when they needed to arrest her speed before landing. That put her out of range of the heavier mechs, though the light mechs were still charging ahead in chase. "I am returning. I counted at least 30 mechs from light to assault, incoming from Quadrant B," Tycho breathlessly spoke into the mic. After a significant delay, the more authoritative voice from before responded,
"We need you to buy time for a response. Engage forward elements with harassing fire. Drive them back, Mechwarrior. Your Chinggis Khan demands it."
A chill ran up Tycho's spine at the mention of Malvina Hazen. She looked at her active probe and saw at least 4 light mechs on her tail. If she turned to face them, it would be a challenging fight, and even then it would be unlikely that she would win before the other heavier Republic mechs caught up to her. "Af, I will show them the folly of trying to break Clan Jade Falcon," Tycho spoke in a manner that conveyed far more confidence than she had in the moment. After a deep breath, she banked the Ion Sparrow again, turning toward the Republic light mechs. Triggering her jump jets, Solok leapt up into the forest canopy again, angled lower this time, the mech's claw-like feet gliding down toward a Republic commando. It was caught off guard by the sudden face-to-face contact with the mech it was chasing. Tycho took every advantage and fired her machine gun arrays the second she touched down on the jungle floor. The 25-ton Intersphere mech was almost instantly awash in sparks and knocked off balance by the combined assault with 8 firing machine guns. Some of the rounds missed, but most hit center of mass, and the mech tripped and fell forward. Tycho didn't wait, as the other 3 light mechs were already turning to face her. Once again on the run, Tycho waited several seconds for the mechs to start firing before hitting her jump jets again. Lasers cut through the jungle undergrowth, followed by explosions from SRMs where her mech would have been. Instead, she sailed through the air between the large trees around them. Hitting the ground, she picked the closest target, which looked like a jerry-rigged mongoose with a missile pod where its left arm should have been. She squeezed the trigger as the 2 mechs ran past each other. Several lasers dug into the Ion Sparrow's right torso armor, while the mongoose's right arm exploded under the combined machine gun fire. Tycho knew she had to keep moving. So long as she kept moving, she stayed alive. The young Mechwarrior pivoted her mech and ran again toward the Republic forces, which made the lighter mechs come back to chase. As soon as Tycho saw the larger mechs stomping through the forest, she hit her jump jets again, sending Solok high over their heads while they tried to track and shoot her out of the sky. For a moment, looking down at the dozens of enemy mechs, Tycho felt as though she was invincible. Maybe she could delay this attack. Maybe she could save the assault on Sao Paulo. Maybe she would find honor after all.
Mechwarrior Tycho, report. Mechwarrior Tycho, report. We need updated information. Transmit updated RAF composition immediately. Mechwarrior Tycho, report.
Thank you so much for coming by as we talked some BattleTech today. If you felt the video was worthy, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Every little bit helps. For those who go the extra step to become a channel member or Ko-fi supporter, I owe you a debt of gratitude. You are amazing and making all of this nonsense possible. Now take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.